lonesome. Until I first met you, I was lonesome. And when you came inside, dear, my heart grew light and this whole world seemed new to me. You're really swell, I have to admit you deserve expressions that really fit you. And so I've racked my brain hoping to explain all the things that you did to me. Amir, Mr. Shane, please let me explain. Amir, Mr. Shane means you're grand. Amir, Mr. Shane, again I'll explain. It means you're the fairest in the land. It means you're the fairest. It means you're the fairest. It means you're the fairest in the land. It means you're the please let me explain. Amir, Mr. Shane means you're grand. Amir, Mr. Shane, again I'll explain. It means you're the fairest in the land.
Greetings from the Andrews sisters. I'm Patty.
I'm Maxine.
And I'm Laverne.
I could say Bella, Bella, even say wonderbar. Each language only helps me tell you how grand you are. I've tried to explain. Amir, Mr. Shane, so kiss me, kiss me, kiss me. I say that you will understand.
All right. Hello and welcome, everybody, to Bread Theory. I am Zach. I'm your host tonight.
And tonight I have a very special guest. It is Miko, who is an Indigenous activist from the organization Illahee's Spirit Runners. How are you doing tonight, Miko?
Greetings, I'm good. Yes, thank you.
Great, great to hear it. So, could you tell us a little bit about Illahee Spirit Runners and kind of the work that you do?
Yeah, so we're an indigenous resistance group, and we're about a decade old. Um, my grandfather was a senior member of American Indian movement,
Hmm.
as well as my great uncle. And I got into the movement kind of around like 2008, and tree sit here in what they call Pacific Northwest, but we use the word
Yeah.
Illahee, which is a
Oh,
Chinook,
okay. So that's where that word comes
literally,
from.
yeah, Chinook, and it literally means the land,
Just the land. Okay.
right?
Very cool.
And so then I did longest walk with American Indian movement, and
What is that all about?
um, well, the first one was like Trail of Broken Treaties, Longest Walk back in 1970s was a response to the termination era, and literally a lot of the tribes were going to be terminated, and so that was a time when American Indian movement put down whatever they were working on and marched across the country,
Mm.
went to DC. Um, Historically, if you go back and look, you can see that they took over the BIA building,
Oh,
and that it wasn't symbolic. Um, and so, that kind of became like a thing for a while. And Dennis Banks was doing a lot of the walks,
mhm,
and so there's aspects of like health and fitness in
mhm,
there. Um, Raising awareness. That was a period of time where there was a lot of raising awareness,
mhm,
and using this process to bring back ceremonies, just connecting indigenous peoples, protecting sacred sites,
mhm.
all these kind of stuff. And then I was active in the Occupy movement as a direct action committee leader for my area up here in my
Mm.
hometown, Corvallis, Oregon.
Okay.
So
What
yeah,
what
I
would
mean, we're the most active indigenous resistance group on the continent. We just completed 300 direct actions.
Oh, wow. Congrats to that. Wow.
We have our own entirely own culture of resistance. So um, like the flavor of this is unique. It combines a lot of um, northwest elements, but also I took pieces of the best movements that I've been involved in. I mean, just everything. My resume is quite large, but so like we learned internet security from Anonymous. We
Hmm.
have all these um, indigenous background from American Indian movement. Then I actually participated in Idle No More from the beginning. I fasted with the chief, so we have all that. I was in the New Rainbow Coalition.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so it's like a lot of different stuff. I organized with African communists for a while.
Okay.
Um, And so we
So,
just really combined a lot of elements. Um, we did there's a wildlife conservation kind of niche to our group, um, where it's indigenous led, right? So everything,
mhm,
and we've kind of led that pushback, insisting that things need to be indigenous led. And I remember getting like teased for it, and
mhm.
people trying to blacklist me and shit, all this racist bullying and stuff. And then now the movement catches up with me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, I
and
mean,
and
it would.
so we're trendsetters, right? And so what
Yeah.
I'm saying now is that wasn't even enough.
Mhm.
And people said, well, Mako, when will you be ready to unite with other people? And at that time I couldn't answer. And it's because the power dynamics were all wrong.
I see.
And so now that we have an organization that's working towards Indigenous rule,
Hmm.
we can actually unite.
So, what do you mean by indigenous rule? What does that look like to you
Mm-hmm.
in terms of a movement going forward?
So it's about bolstering pre-colonial Indigenous governance.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of these elements exist still to this day. They're just invisibilized and not given their rightful power or authority. Such groups as the Iroquois Confederacy,
Hmm.
Three Fires Council, the EZLN, ancient and some modern contemporary warrior societies, such
Hmm.
as the Tokala Warrior Society, Strongheart Warrior Society, Kichitahayoka, these different entities. And those warrior societies are the ancient police, the ancient Marines, the ancient National Guard, and we're still here.
Hmm.
So this was an important element of the abolish the police kind of movement that didn't incorporate us. It's still making indigenous people visible. Because yes, abolish the police, but then restore the rightful stewards too.
Yeah. I mean, you still have to steward the commons in some way or another. You can't just
Right,
let, you know, selfish actors go and take whatever they can. That's
right. So
what got into
we're
this
the
place.
rightful defenders of Turtle Island.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Um,
And
uh,
like for trade, like it's actually the Oneida should be consulted about trade because that
okay.
was their portion of the Three Fires Council.
Well, tell me more
So,
about the Three
we would
Fires.
like to see nations consulting with the Oneida rather than the U.S. We feel those entities are illegitimate.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that a lot of these treaties were set up, they were supposed to be where the native tribes basically had sovereignty, like they were sovereign nations, and it doesn't seem to be that that's the way that it's working out now. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. But also that sovereignty implies like power under.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's power under, and so indigenous rule is power over.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
we would we would therefore have control of immigration and all kinds of things. So we would finally get the respect that we deserve as indigenous people once we get some of this control.
Yeah.
And we've learned a lot from African leaders, as I was saying,
Mm-hmm.
because indigenous folks is very much like crabs in a barrel. And
Mm.
instead of supporting the young ones, a lot of the older ones just tried to stomp on the young ones, which is part of the cause of our high suicide rate.
Oh, that's really unfortunate to see. Although I will say that with that analogy, the crabs in the barrel, the thing that people usually don't think of or talk about is that crabs don't naturally occur in a barrel. Someone has to actually go and put them into that barrel for them to be in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, in the case of what we're talking about, it would be basically the U.S. government putting indigenous people into confines.
Right. Colonialism is the cause of all these problems. Sure.
Yep. Yep.
And so because of that and the nepotism and stuff, we had to go to, who would teach us, and then like we sought out the best education we possibly could.
Mhm.
And honestly, some of the best education on the planet is African.
Okay.
And people are so anti-black that they're not ready to look at it. But this Marcus Garvey quote really set me off. It said, "Africa for the Africans."
Hmm.
I was like, ooh, that's profound. And so then, by that same logic, it's Turtle Island for the Turtle Islanders,
Hmm.
right? And I mean, I've been saying for years, like, I mean, because I for a lot of years I was like trying to work like the Earth First kind of crowd, Northwest like kind of forest defender people, you know, maybe some kind of like black bloc elements and stuff. A lot of like Portland, Oregon kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I was trying to reach them, and I would say like, well, you should be working under Indigenous rule, Indigenous leadership.
Hmm.
And, so I use my mind is wandering a little.
Oh, it's
I see a good question in the chat, but the analogy was that I wouldn't like show up to like Scotland with like 500 like Aimsters and
mhm.
try to like start a political organization on another continent that I'm not even from, and just take over and like not ask for guidance, not organize with, but
Right.
organize over
Mhm.
at the expense of. And so that's what folks are doing to us. There's white supremacists, and then there's also an African supremacist element too.
Mhm.
Some are willing to unite under Indigenous rule right away, and some are resistant to it.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we're willing to work with anybody who agrees with Indigenous rule. Also, we're a militant organization, so we're willing to work with people and train people if it's your first militant organization. But also, you must understand that you can't be in a militant organization unless you can follow orders. We have a chain of command, you
Sure.
know, because it's not kumbaya. It's in case the person in front of you cease to exist anymore. You know who's next. It's
Oh,
not a game. It's not cosplay.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Serious
Red
stuff.
power.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Have to be united action. Um, so with Indigenous rule,
Hmm.
you're saying that's because of your Indigenous roots and your connection to this land going back for untold generations. You have a cultural context. You have a land context that other people don't. That have been brought
Right.
to this
Right.
land by or came to this land in other ways. So that's your
Right.
reasoning for Indigenous rule. Is that fair to say?
Well, there's so many. I mean, that could be its own show. Why Indigenous rule? We could do 45 minutes on that. But another element is that and a bunch of people probably try to copy me as soon as I drop this, but we're forming a pan-Indigenous alliance.
Oh, okay. So throughout the entire world, all
Well, right here
Verizon.
in Turtle Island, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
just
it has an international element in the sense that you can join some of our committees.
mm,
Because we always have had a worldwide following. We're popular in like 33 countries around the world,
oh wow.
which really shines a light back on like what's up with the cronyism and the nepotism and the popularity contest and the
Mm,
censorship of indigenous leaders to the point that you don't know someone who's thrown down for a decade,
hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. But it's an interesting time. There's a lot of the gatekeepers that were trying to hold us back. Either they're too old and feeble to hold us back, or they've run their course. I'll just
Mhm.
be nice about it and I'll say they've run their course and they can't hold us back anymore.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I mean, it seems like just in general across this country, there's a lot of opportunity with things getting worse and worse for your average people.
Mhm.
There's a lot more. It's a lot easier to go up to just any random person and say, "Don't you wish things were a little bit better?" You know, is maybe the system not the one that you want to be living under? Um, so yeah, yeah. What are some
But
of the
time to get some new people in power, though, because those old groups, some of their politics are so watered down and they had been so compromised that, um, like they would come off saying like armed resistance in 1973, and you come
other?
back and ask for advice now, and they tell you to vote Democrat or um, tell you to go talk to Ted Turner or some kind of celebrityism, and so it hurts us too. It hurts us that we've lost that respect, and this is why education is so important.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I can comment on this while we're here too. Is we see a lot of people like strapped up, like getting sticks and stuff to defend themselves.
Hmm.
Um, and the thing about that is that in this so-called country, illegitimate
Hmm.
quotation marks,
Of course.
there's like 2 or 3 guns for every person here. So if getting armed was the path to liberation, that would have happened a long time ago. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything without education.
Right. Right.
What did Thomas Sankaroff said? A revolutionary without proper training is a potential criminal.
Mm.
Something to this effect.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds familiar to me. That makes a ton of sense. Yeah.
But yeah, we wanted to talk about the land back while
Yeah.
you have me here.
Let's
And
get into some.
so,
Seems to be commonly or widely misunderstood by even a lot of people on the left. Um, could you like give us the base? Start with the basics about what the concept means, where it's come from, and that sort of thing.
yeah, so I mean, various revolutionaries are in tune with the fact that we have to get our land back. Um, you know, uh, Frantz Fanon said that's what restores our dignity and gives us bread.
Mhm.
Hey, while we're on bread theory.
Yeah.
Um,
There you go.
so, yeah. And I think there's a few different avenues to that. There's been kind of a way to give it back to the tribes, but understanding that land is held in trust by the federal government
Hmm.
of these tribes. So that I don't know, I don't think is the best. And the more I've been studying the problem, I come to think about buying our land back,
Buying it back.
buying it back.
Okay.
And it was my grandpa who kind of furthered my thinking into this route, because here I was like trying to protect Vision Quest sites, And I'll go to the elders for their advice, even though, as I mentioned, it's not very helpful at all.
Mhm.
But so I'm saying, we're going to put our bodies on the line to protect this Vision Quest site. We're not going to allow the trees to be extracted. And he keeps seeing me make these stands. Sometimes I'm successful. We ended up running a Verizon drone testing project out of Portland, and that was really powerful because we knew that they were going to provide information for ICE and further terrorize the people.
Yeah, I'm not disappointed, but not surprised by that at all.
The thing with buying the land back is it gives us the legal right to defend it.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see, like, even nations right now where extraction projects are trying to go through, like Standing Rock, for example,
Mm-hmm.
they got their butts kicked.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the land is in trust to the federal government. The Mohawks are getting off the train tracks up there. You see all that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we own the land, then we can use self-defense um, as a determination. On this is the strategy that a lot of groups are using, not necessarily on the left. I mean, we can
Mm-hmm.
study successes from everything. We can look at contradicting viewpoints and come at the truth.
Sure.
But I've seen other groups, let's just call them other groups, get ahead by getting land, vehicles, building their own schools.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually quite pathetic that we don't have our own schools. And everyone right now is saying we don't have a safe place to go. It's not safe for our kids. You know, um, we have like young people that are afraid to go outside,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. And then the left is so individualistic
Yeah.
and, quite frankly, so racist that they
Part.
won't support indigenous, uh, uh, efforts at self-determination. But yeah, building schools is one of the best things we could possibly do with this. And we call it an eco village for lack of a better word at this time. We're experimenting with the idea of maybe making an archery club.
Oh.
Um, how it's going to be more collective, and we're going to be working with drought resistant plants. Um, Desert roots, indigenous foods
Okay.
that
Where is this going to be located?
in Illahee,
Oh, okay.
yeah, what's commonly known as Oregon.
Okay. Um, okay. Is it the drier side of the state then? If you're trying to use like desert
That's
plants, or are
correct.
you?
It'll be in the northern desert portion, which is part of why we've selected it. Is colonists don't think that it's usable land, and us indigenous, we know for a fact that it is usable.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, people lived there before colonizers came in and took
Right.
everything over. So it's definitely something that people can live on again. Um, and then also with permaculture techniques, there's ways to make even the driest desert bloom. From
Mm-hmm.
something as simple as just changing the texture of the landscape or something to capture what moisture falls more efficiently. Um,
Right.
so that's really cool, though. Um, yeah. Okay.
And so it's also wildlife habitat. So this has kind of been a thing for our group that, we believe that wolves are sacred
Hmm.
and that they're necessary for the restoration of Turtle Island. Um,
Yeah, we just watched
like as far as ecology, but also with our spirituality. You were
Mhm.
just watching what, the Aldo Leopold one?
No, we watched the George Monbiot one where he talks
Hmm.
about his experience of them putting wolves back in Yellowstone Park and
Right.
how it had a cascading effect to the point where it was even changing the course of rivers and stabilizing the
Right.
banks more because of the different
Exactly.
feeding patterns of the prey for the wolves and stuff like that. It's amazing all the effects. It
Exactly.
basically brought the land back to life just from reintroducing that one species.
Exactly. Yeah. And so indigenous folks have known this stuff for a long time, and
Mhm.
so now we're seeing things like um what is it, chronic wasting disease
Yeah,
and stuff in the elk populations, and we know that wolf can solve this problem.
right.
um,
Yeah, they'll take the weak and the
yeah.
infirmed, and the population gets stronger because of it. So yeah, it's funny. It's taken us so long to figure out from Western science what the people living here knew for thousands of years.
Right.
So yeah, that indigenous knowledge is just absolutely invaluable. Do you have any plans to do stuff with like language preservation, or not even preservation, but bringing it back to life, really? Um, because language is incredibly tied to land and culture.
Yeah, so that's an ongoing thing. Being that we're a anti-colonial group, we encourage folks to be engaged in that process. And so, like, I mean, for myself, I'm like watching videos in Potawatomi and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, that's happening. Um, I know 100 or so words in Lakota, about that much in Potawatomi. Probably a little bit more Lakota. But yeah, that's happening.
That's great.
There's so much to work on, you know, and not enough people. Is you'll be surprised at like the amount of people now that like, I mean, and I'm just shocked. I'm like, what, like anti-colonial politics is like trying to get popular? Because this was this was not the case a few
No,
years back.
oh no.
Um, you know, or is it starting to get cool? Right on. But anyway, it's a lot more than a meme.
Oh yeah.
And what we're finding now is that a lot of people, they want to say they're down with social justice and they're all these things, but they actually don't know the step-by-step daily work that makes this all a possibility. A lot of them have never functioned on a committee, have never even joined a committee before, have never been in a disciplined revolutionary organization, have never been in a militant organization, have never been in an anti-colonial organization.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of catch up that we need to do.
Yeah.
One of the first things you need to do is actually to join an organization,
Yeah.
even a crappy one. If you join a crappy organization, you're going to figure out pretty soon that it's a crappy one, and then you're going to come looking for me. So just join an organization.
Might as well just cut out the middleman and join you to begin with.
Some people have to find things out for themselves.
That's true. Some people got to find things out the hard way. That's true. Um, so I gather that part of your plan with making these eco villages is to
Mm.
uh, take back power from colonial systems and systems that control everyone's life right now. You know, even things like a power grid or food systems or any other stuff. So your idea is to do for yourselves. Um,
Yeah, do for self and build something that can contend with white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and divorce the system more and more as we go.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, then also show what we learn to the masses so it can be replicated.
Absolutely.
Because, like us alone, that's good, and we're trying to become a mass organization. We welcome entire organizations to join up under our banner.
Mm-hmm.
A reason why is because, and I learned this from wolves, but we're at that time that everyone needs to join up under Indigenous Rule. You can keep your, and some more people are going to try to copy me. So you should just know you should get with the original here. There's good stuff going on.
Get it from the
But
source.
entire group should join under our banner, maintain their old banner so they have their ties to their area.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as their political analysis is close to ours and we can work, then we should join a super PAC.
A super PAC. Okay.
Now, Wolves did this in the winter of 2015
Hmm.
in Russia
Oh.
because wolves normally compete in packs, groups of about 7 to 15, but under extraordinary circumstances, and nobody can argue that we are under extraordinary circumstances now,
Oh,
we
that is
come
for sure.
together to form a super PAC. And they formed a pack of wolves that was up to 400 members.
Wow. That would be a sight to see.
And so they attacked a village over there, and the villagers were terrorized. They didn't know what was going to happen. They started forming hunting parties, and the wolves came in and devoured 33 horses and then left.
Oh, wow. Wow. We're not messing around.
Right. And so it's completely logical that entire Brown Beret units, entire warrior societies, entire grassroots groups
Mm-hmm.
could all join under our banner.
And you said as long as an organization kind of aligns with you politically, then you're
Right.
good
And we
to
have
work with them.
7 group rules that we've identified as barriers to unity.
Okay. What would
And
those be?
so, oh, we have them listed. It's a, you know,
Or you can just do like generally what is your political orientation?
fairly extensive. But I'll try to give you the quick is like no neocolonialism,
Mm-hmm.
no tone policing or peace policing, no
Mm-hmm.
anti-blackness, no colorism,
Yeah.
no militarism, and no astroturf, the fake
Oh yeah.
grassroots that we see going on.
Yeah, you got to be really careful about who you accept money from because always strings with that. It's destroyed many
Right,
movements in the past.
right. Yep. And so, I mean, like somebody asked about New Rainbow Coalition. Yeah, New Rainbow Coalition is like the Fred Hampton one, but it's more modern groups that were trying to put that together. And so I feel good about coalition politics, except for one thing that non-natives shouldn't be able to outvote natives. And that's what led me to the understanding that we finally need to implement Indigenous Rule.
Hmm.
Because non-natives don't tell us shit on our land. Red power.
Red power. Yeah. 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 I can definitely understand that at all. Completely. Because, yeah, through, through colonial efforts, Native people have been diminished in their population. Well, white people have grown tremendously. So if you just allow them to do it numerically, then yeah, it seems like eventually, as long as your group kept gaining members, then you'd be outnumbered by the white people at some point. So I can understand that for sure.
I see another question. Is American Indian movement a communist movement? It's a good question. And I would have to say no. In fact, it tended to have some conservative values in there, which is, I think, part of why it made it so powerful in that point in history.
Mhm.
Is you had left-leaning and right-leaning natives coming together,
Mhm.
but also it was circumstance driving them to be great in some cases. I don't know if some of those people would have acted so boldly had they not been pressured,
Mhm.
really pressured on, hey, well, when you put pressure on something, you can find out what people are made of. So, um, and isn't it close to Veterans Day? So, yeah, much respect to everyone who fought at Wounded Knee
Mhm.
on the 71 day um, shootout. Everyone who bought supplies, everyone who was so
Yeah.
courageous, the Cherokees who sent a helicopter,
Oh,
you
oh,
know,
I didn't know about that.
Buddy Lamont who got his head blown off, rest in peace,
Rest- Yeah.
It's like, yeah. But no, they were not communist. And so I had made some of these leaps in understanding by working with the All African Revolutionary Party
Mm.
and another African Communist Party that I was with for just under a year.
Oh, oh, okay. So,
And so that really taught me like more of a discipline, how to build for power, how to use committees, um, what is like a disciplined way to struggle with your comrades, um, and kind of like what behaviors might be like sabotaging the movement, and just like, I don't know, it just helped me mature,
mhm.
studying communism.
So you feel communism added a dimension to your actions and your
Right.
efforts.
It's the logical progression at this time because we were just listening to Kwame Ture last night, and Kwame Ture is really taking me to the next level. But he says there's only two systems. It's either capitalism or socialism.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would
And
definitely
once
agree
you
with that.
put it that way, it's simplified
Yep, for sure. It's either legalized subjugation of other people or not,
or
basically.
not.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, so you believe that under indigenous rule, they would choose to not, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
And so, like, rule number one is talking about neo-colonialism. So those are like your Deb Haalands and stuff and we're going to call those people out as the traitors to the people that they are.
Hmm. I don't know anything about Deb Haaland or that movement.
Yeah, she's a Paiute woman who's in the Department of the Interior
Mm.
now, and has made it clear that she is going to do exactly what Biden and Harris tell her to
Oh, okay.
do.
So she's totally on the neoliberal
She's
train then.
totally on them. Yeah.
That's unfortunate to see. really sucks. So we have another question here in the chat.
Yeah, question.
So, you know, I'm going to assume this was in good faith. We'll just assume that for the time being. But they're asking what would happen, I guess referring to your comment about police abolition. What would happen if there's violent people? So how would an indigenously ruled society deal with violence and bad actors?
Oh, I thought we addressed that. So the ancient warrior societies are the police, National Guard, the Marines.
Mhm.
And so it's not that there's no one here to take care of it. We established that we are in fact still here. And so people should probably investigate that, become and build relationship. Because I always say you can't be in solidarity with the people you have no relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
So start to build relationships with these modern and contemporary warrior societies. Because we would be the ones that you would go to. If you had an issue, you wouldn't call the police. That could be argued that was colonial or racist, and so if you call the rightful stewards, and I've been having to say to my own community, like, why don't because this is even an issue with us. We've been taught not to believe in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think self-determination can work when it can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and so let's take the guardian angels, for example. In New York, the guardian angels were so effective that they cut subway crime down next to zero.
Oh.
And the New York City mayor had them disbanded because it was putting the cops out of business. And I'm talking prevention. Wow. This is all prevention. It's more on the prevention side. The police don't prevent crime. They just scrape it off the sidewalk when it's done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I mean, first and foremost, they serve capital interests. That's what they're there for. We have a capitalist system of governance, and they're just there to enforce capitalist laws. So there'll probably be a lot less crime if there was not police. I mean, there'd definitely be less crime if there was not police, and there'd be less crime if there was not capitalism as well. If people weren't allowed to dominate one another, there goes a reason for most crime.
Yeah, and I think there would be other problem-solving strategies like restitution and stuff like that. We can see, and learn from countries like the Kingdom of Tonga, who have the least amount of prisoners of any country on the planet.
Oh, I was not aware of that.
We know people are capable of solving the problems. But yeah, bolster the warrior societies. Tokala Warrior Society.
Tokala Warrior Society. How do you spell that?
Yeah, Tokala. Tokala Warrior Society.
Warrior Society. Okay. So okay. Let's imagine a scenario then. So someone comes to the Warrior Society with a problem. Someone is trying to hoard resources or something like that. What is the process that a warrior society goes through to kind of determine justice and get to a just end?
Well, I mean, these things are still in a process of restoration and stuff, so I guess we would have to decide at that time what we were going to do about it, what we were capable of doing, given resources, and probably be, a lot of factors.
but it tries to apply kind of like a restorative justice framework where, instead of just what we have right now in the U.S. is like a retributive society, system of justice where you get retribution for bad things. Bad things happen, and then bad things are done to the person that it's crime and punishment basically. So it would be, as opposed to that, it would be more of a trying to make all the people who have been harmed whole again, right? Is that right?
Could be different ideologies depending on where you go and whatnot too. I'm privy to a Mohawk teaching about peacekeepers that I can share, and so the instruction was to always preserve the peace, and in those cases that you couldn't, you're supposed to take your war club and quickly as possible restore the peace.
Mm.
So I mean, revolution is violent. You can read Frantz Fanon, chapter 1, on violence. Anti-colonialism is always a violent act. Frantz Fanon. And we see that even when we're nonviolent. They tested howitzer machine guns with exploding shrapnel shells on the ghost dancers. And that's why we wear yellow and blue. It's a throwback, a tribute to the ghost dancers.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, so we know that even if we pray and dance, they'll come test weapons on us. That's been our experience.
Absolutely. Colonialism is continuously a violent system. There's constantly violence enacted against people.
Right.
Whether it's seen or unseen too, it extends its reach around the world and enacts violence in order to give us the tech gadgets that we have.
Right. Yeah, and so we're not being respected as a people until we have a warrior prowess like everyone else is allowed to have. I was just watching a video on like the 13 smallest armies in the world or something.
Mm-hmm.
And like even some of these island nations have an army with like 400 people, and they mean to defend the island.
Right.
Like they mean it. And so we have that right too. That was part of that where we were just talking about sovereignty with power under. And so we're not allowed to have a standing army, and standing armies have been used against us since the colonists first set foot on our land. We're not a violent people. We would always go back and take care of our camps during the winter, and the colonist just continues to make perpetual war. They don't even stop for the winter. And without a standing army, we can never contend with this. Until we're allowed to have a warrior prowess, we cannot contend with this. And so this is part of our rule number 2. No tone policing and no peace policing. We're not going to have, especially non-natives, tell us to be impotent. And we're not going to allow those pacified and corrupt amongst us to tell us that either.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the politics of respectability always get thrown in the face of every movement, no matter the level of violence, even if it's quote unquote violence towards windows and stuff like that. It's always, oh no, you can't. You're undermining your own cause if ever you're violent. When, I mean, the fact is, violence is being done towards the people that are rising up all the time.
Yeah.
So it's a ridiculous double standard, and it fractures movements. It just wastes time and pushes people apart, so they can argue about side issues.
You had the right word for it there too: respectability politics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Amazing Wolf Skeptic says nonviolence protects the status quo. It does. Right.
Yeah. So Marcus Garvey again. He said a people without power and authority are a people without respect.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why those issues are happening. You know. So yeah, we should be allowed to have our warrior prowess.
Yeah, yeah,
They want to erode it, and they put a lot of our warriors in prison and stuff like that.
yeah, yep. They create laws that they then use to justify taking away people's rights. Um, Long
That
practice.
kind of respectability politics, I think, was gas on the fire for that kind of situation. And here's my thought. Is it because it makes a place where, like, that defensive warrior, probably male, not in all cases, because we have female warriors too, and respect and honor to them, but in most cases, male, it made it so we didn't have a place in the movement. Okay. And I, as a warrior, started experiencing this when I would travel like thousands of miles to like an indigenous thing, and it would be taken over by like the clergy or like hippies or so. It was like so co-opted that at the point that they were like telling indigenous warriors to go home.
Oh,
Go
so
home, you indigenous warriors. You mean to actually defend the land, and that makes us uncomfortable.
oh yeah, we can't have anyone
You
be
go home because we're just
detained.
going to sing Kumbaya and write our senator. So you
Yeah,
go home.
yeah, that's not the kind of help that anybody needs.
Hmm. And so I think it probably like filled the grave.
Mm,
As I was saying, it contributed to the suicide, and it filled the prison. Filled the
yeah,
prison.
I can see that. Telling you have to behave in a certain way, and only certain responses are acceptable when violence is being done towards you. I can see how that leads to depression and feeling hopelessness and as though it's a losing cause. You know,
Right.
so that's incredibly tragic, though. That's terrible to see.
Yeah, and so, rather than complain about it, I intend to build power.
Right?
And that's why people should support Illahee spirit runners. Our logo, that wolf with the lightning in the mouth, is a
Mm-hmm.
symbol of truth.
Yeah, let's bring that up right now.
you know. And when you say the truth, you will be hated. That's why, like, everyone has some opinion about us. They put economic strangleholds on us, slandered us, threatened us, and they
Mm-hmm.
still couldn't stop us. We have 300 direct actions, you know.
That's amazing. Yeah, and yeah, yeah, way to go for that. That's really cool. Um, what have some of your recent actions been that you've had success with?
So we did some stuff to protect the salmon over here. There's a couple wastewater treatment plants that we're dumping. The EPA is involved. They're trying to sell sewage mixed with industrial and medical waste as fertilizer.
Oh, just put like raw
And
sewage and stuff out onto the fields. That's what they were trying to do.
but worse because it has industrial and medical waste mixed in, so it could be like motor oil,
Oh,
HIV, like people's medication.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was leading to animal deformities and stuff, and so we had to shut down the highway. Um, and with a minimal amount of people too, like 3 or 4 people with courage.
And it's so just like, it's so tragically ironic too, because protecting the salmon runs protects the fertility of the whole land.
Yeah,
Like
the
salmon
entire
are
ecology.
they're one of the keystone species of every place that they have a run in.
Yes. Keystone species, absolutely.
Yeah,
People
you know that
are supposed to be a keystone species too.
it's
Read my
supposed
blog. I wrote about it in
it's
there.
supposed to be. Yeah.
The
Um,
Illahee spirit runners. We won't quit until we become a keystone species again. That
and
power.
that's how that's how humans should be. That's how we were from existence. We weren't just separate from nature. We didn't just act upon it for our own greed. We had a hand in co-creating it with all the creatures that we depend on. Uh,
Yeah.
so that is how we should be again. Like I mean, there really is no other way to live long term. I mean, you can do it like is being done now, but that's just robbing from the future. You know, that's just satisfying your own needs by robbing from the future with
Yeah.
waste and pollution and all just for your own comfort. Uh, but that's awesome that you're trying to protect those salmon species and those
Yeah.
salmon runs. It's just so critical. Um, and like there's a direct chain. You know, the salmon take nutrients from the ocean. They are taken in by bears and other creatures that eat them.
Mhm.
They bring that fertilizer up into the landscape, and the whole system is richer because of it. It's just this big cycle that everything is dependent on. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
But like we've done all kinds of things, and when people called on us for solidarity, we would go forward. Like we took the train tracks for Wet'suwet'en. Nobody around here did that. We did. Um, like I said, we ran that drone project out. We kept confronting Fish and Wildlife, like trying to take over their offices. And we would strike at rural offices too,
Mhm.
sometimes in small towns where their entire sheriff department might only have like 3 people on duty, and you can run up in a small town and take it
Mhm.
over. So, we were trying to teach tactics and stuff. Um, you can go to Portland and get beat up by the horse and bicycle police and pepper sprayed, and or you can go to a small town where you're strong. So target selection, we've been, it's been years and years of asking people, is your activism effective?
Mhm.
You know, and so people who care ask these questions. People who care ask these questions of themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just doing it for like a feel good or an ego trip, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. I guess just
I
to say.
took 3 years of psychology, and I'm still trying to figure some of these people out. Um, the 350.orgs and stuff.
Yeah.
They've been gang stalking some of our people, and
Ooh.
just really trying to push back, and so I started like walking up to their, like when they table, I see them table at events, and I like grab their whole stack of flyers and rip it up, throw it back at them, tell them
Yeah.
they don't have consent to be organizing on our land and stuff like this. And
A lot of these organizations, once they get to be nonprofit status, it just becomes kind of like a self-perpetuating bureaucracy where they're just about getting money and not necessarily even doing anything with it, but just it's kind of like the liberal way of doing things. You
yeah,
talk a good game. You say, "Oh, look, we're gonna fiddle around the margins with this and that program," but then
hmm,
when it comes down to it, it never really gets across the finish line. Nothing really ever changes because of it.
right. And so, I mean, it's one thing to speak out against liberalism, but we need to build that power,
Hmm.
because these liberals are they're more organized. There's
Yeah.
more of them. And they're abusing not only indigenous peoples, indigenous leaders, well, revolutionary ones. They love their tokens. But
Yeah.
they're also abusing young radicals who are, because it's mostly a European organization, so they're abusing young European radicals. One young man up here, he was so radical he couldn't fit in their groups, and these progressive took turns farting on him at
Oh,
a public meal.
oh
So
gosh.
these are how your liberal progressives are behaving. And all you radicals that are sitting around shit posting and sharing memes, you've got some work to do. If you're not in an organization working for justice, you should be. And I mean that as in you're starting to piss the rest of us off. Red
Yeah.
power.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, yeah, definitely now is the time for action, because it affects everybody's future, and yeah, it's in everyone's self-interest as well to be part of that change in a real way. Not, yeah, like you say, not just shit posting or memeing or any of that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That can be fun, and it can, keep your spirits up, but it really has to come down to more at the end of the day. So what have been some of the results of some of your actions? What have you seen as an effect?
We got a grizzly bear reintroduced to the Northern Cascades.
Oh, wow.
Some of it was just reform shit. Like, they made it so that indigenous peoples have to be contacted out here before they do wild horse roundups and murder the wild horses. Like, one year we scared Fish and Wildlife so bad that they called off the wolf hunt for across the entire country for 10 days till they figured out what the hell was going on. See. And probably the only reason why we didn't crush it right there is the disunity of the people, which is why you see me stress unity politics every day of my life now. Red power.
Yeah, red power.
What else we have done?
So the grizzly bear, that's another keystone species. That
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
that white colonialists almost obliterated from their native range.
We were able to hold wolf protections for Oregon long enough that wolves got established in California. So like all those people down there, like they really have us to thank for it. A wolf just made it to Central California for the first time since
I heard about that.
1921.
That's hopeful.
Well, yeah, we're claiming victory. We have to celebrate all these little victories, because if we don't, these other groups take credit for it.
Yeah.
In 2014, we took over the Boise Fish and Wildlife Office, and I marched people all the way from Portland. People are like, what? How come I didn't hear about that? Well, Earth First printed it, so I don't know how come you can't see me. But we did that, and the people in the camp, I said, don't get discouraged if tomorrow we take over this office, perform really well, and some NGO like Earth Justice ends up taking credit for our victory. We're just going to do it anyway. And so we did it. We took over the office, performed really well. Everyone was courageous. We left at a strategic moment where we couldn't be overwhelmed or punished. And the next day, they woke me up. They said, Mato, look, you were right. Earth Justice took credit for our victory. And so I was like, not shocked. I mean, obviously I predicted it, right? And so, but that was also showing that I'm like an artist who knows how to use my palette, that I've spent enough time in the field, I mean, not like a student who just studies, but somebody who's like knows through experience, life experience. And, it was good to demonstrate that to my people. Like, have confidence in what I say.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, that could be reality. So pay attention. Red power.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Let's see here. Does anyone else have any questions? Am I mispronouncing your name? Is it Mato? Is that a more correct pronunciation?
All I'm working with, you're fine. In Lakota or
Okay.
Dakota, it's going to be more like Mato. And in Potawatomi or Anishinaabe, it's going to be more like Mako.
Okay.
But you're fine.
Oh,
It's just dialect.
okay.
More questions?
So how have people been taking your message as you branch out into more and more spaces? Have they been receptive to an idea of adding in some more of these communistic ideas into Native struggles?
Some are, yes. The more the more organized ones who work in a regular political education program, yeah. And I see it as the logical progression, as I've said before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we're all overcoming anti-communist propaganda.
Yeah. Okay.
And, we found a few articles out there talking about how Marx and Engels actually like co-opted like the Haudenosaunee and the Iroquois and stuff like that. And there's this really great article out there. It's called like 400 years of indigenous struggle being co-opted by white dudes or something.
Mhm.
And this goes back into Irish folks co-opting the Métis struggle in Eastern Canada. And so just really letting that sink in, how profound. And that's why we're secretive and mysterious. We do things underground. We've been completely underground in the past, and we may go completely underground in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to be stolen from. We're one of the most stolen from people on the planet, and our group is one of the most stolen from groups.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
People want our ideas, but they don't want to work with that real militant, indigenous resistance. And so we're looking for the people who are hungry for it.
Mhm.
Somebody out there is hungry for it. They're like, give me that raw indigenous resistance. I want to go militant, you know? And there's also a thing about controlling how hardcore a movement is. If you're in charge of it, you can control how hardcore it is. There's a natural tendency for everyone to become more radical and more hardcore as you see the causes that you wanted to defend, the things that you love, be destroyed around you. And so me as a leader, I'm hip to it. I know I can take that anywhere I want to. I can take it crazy out into left field and get people in trouble, or I can pick something with longevity, do some good goal setting, think about the collective safety, you know, and organizing like on the res, under the bridge, the trailer park, like those places that the liberal progressives won't even go. That's hardcore. So we get to decide what hardcore is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Our rule number 2 is connected to the tone policing thing, is not to incriminate yourself or others. And so this is a thing about trying to recruit towards the masses, right? Because you can't really vet the masses per se. I mean, it's a process. You got to kind of give people the benefit of a doubt until they prove, that they have a contradiction, a behavior issue, they've done something dangerous. And so one of them is not to incriminate yourself or others.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the idea of if you see someone stealing food, no, you didn't. Just leave it alone.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. Let's see here. I'm trying to think of a good question here. Let's see. What is your timetable for moving forward with like the eco village and getting kind of a base of operations for yourself and your movement? Is this something that's going to happen soon, or is it in process
That's
already?
a really good question. So the fundraising is just not there. We reviewed Kwame Nkrumah's final neocolonialism, Final Stages of Empire. In this book, he talks about the British concept of the deserving poor.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how colonists are deciding who deserves help or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because we have any kind of pride, or we're trying to restore warrior prowess, or we tell the truth, we don't allow ourselves to be exploited, compromised, tokenized, that we're not getting any resources. My post office box is perpetually empty year after year after year. I've struggled with homelessness off and on for 8 years. We're not getting any assistance. So we need people that love the truth. You either love the truth and you're going to help it, or you're flapping out the jaw. You got a flip top head talking out your neck, just spewing some feces out there, because it's not even real. It's not even real,
Mm-hmm.
And so like, and who do they think they're gonna call? Because everybody wants to feel good, right? This is savior complex.
Yeah.
You can't give based off a savior complex.
No.
I'm never gonna give you a feel good.
No. No.
Me, Mako, the invisible warrior, I'm never gonna give you a feel good. In fact, if you give me power, I'm gonna go get it on. There ain't gonna be no feel good about shit. Maybe a future generation.
Mm-hmm.
And all these people are people too. My people. I want to talk to my people right now. You all say you're depressed. Join the club. We will deal with our trauma in another lifetime. We have work to do. Red power.
Okay. Okay. Um, all right. Uh, let's see.
Timeline. We would like to get
Yeah,
a education. We'd like to set up an education program within 5 years. I would like to get the land within 1 year. Um, Everybody really needs this to happen because nobody has a safe place to go.
hmm
I'm gonna start doing some concerts.
Oh, concerts. Are you a
We
musician yourself?
we sell art. Yeah, I do. I do flute.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
and so I've put some stuff like oral tradition stuff on SoundCloud, but I didn't charge any money because we just don't want to. We don't want to sell the revolution. Um, I want to rely on people's like own goodness and that they will give when, I mean, they should decide on their own as like, you know, a early moral adopter or something that they should kick down. Because everyone should get the homie hookup. Comrades shouldn't charge comrades for things like we have free martial arts training, and I'm a black belt instructor. I've studied various styles,
Hmm.
and the time added up. So before you know it, I had 2 decades of experience. So if people are taking my class and they want to kick down, that would be sweet. Jiu-jitsu lessons are up to $140 a month now.
Hmm. Wow.
So if people felt so obligated as to kick down, they surely could. Another thing is we have a post office box. And sometime between I don't know, approximately 1990 thereabouts to now, people forgot how to use a post office box. Everything's like electronic. Do you have an electronic? And it's like, Dan, why you want to make a paper trail on yourself? What? There's everyone gonna create their own dossier file, and here I am on the internet creating mine. But no, seriously, just you send a card, you fold a 20 up in it, and you send it to the post office box. Red power.
Red power. What is that post office box, by the way? Let's put that up in chat for people.
Yeah, it's gonna be Illahee Spirit Runners, P.O. Box 2576, Corvallis, Oregon 97339.
Is it 2576?
Yes, that's correct.
I'm a bit slow in typing there. Um, and that was Corvallis, Oregon.
Yes, correct.
How do you spell Corvallis?
Corvallis.
And that zip one more time.
97339.
97339. So if you'd like to make a mutual aid gift, this is the place to send it right here to Illahee Spirit Runners. Can't think of a better cause to support. It's really amazing what you guys are doing. Having over 300 actions, actually having progress, restoring some of the ecosystem that's been so damaged by colonialism. So that's great.
Yeah, and we see some of these restoration efforts that we're making as it's like a form of outreach, right? It's like how when you protect wolf, you protect everyone and everything because of the habitat we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And so restoring these plants is that way too. The groups in the 70s, like much respect and everything, because, you know, we may not be here if it wasn't for, you know, American Indian movement, Brown Berets, Black Panthers. But those movements failed to address things like climate change
All that.
that we're going to have to address now. And so when we plant these plants back, it's going to have a unity aspect as well, because it's not picky. It doesn't pick who it helps. It literally helps everyone, because we're going to run out of usable quality air. Everybody breathes. We learned this as a water protector. Water is life. Everyone drinks water. So people are so disunified. They're like, I hate these people. I hate those people. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to restore air for everyone. Like, you all just keep fighting each other. We're unified over here, you know? And so I've been calling it unity politics. If you learn more about unity politics, get a hold of me, Mako, the Invisible Warrior. I make my own rules. That's why we have a totally different flavor going on over here.
Yeah, I can definitely tell. So with climate change, it getting worse and worse, I imagine that your part of Oregon is going to end up getting more and more dry as things go on. How are you planning to stand resilient in the face of all the damage that has happened and all the damage that is coming?
Well, we have a new slogan for our group that came up, and it's confront colonialism and restore Turtle Island. And I think that kind of describes our approach. But we'll continue to confront colonialism where we can. You know, make good choices. Make good choices. Try to think about longevity.
Yeah.
And plant back. Spend some considerable time planting back. When we gain power, I think too, because we're going to get control of immigration. We're going to get control of the ability to prosecute people. We're going to build our own courts like the Cuban Revolution did. And, you know, a lot of these corporates and stuff, you know, I think, and I told this to Fish and Wildlife last time I was there, because they started killing baby wolves. I got face to face with him and I said, you know, one day I'm going to see you in leg shackles. He's like, what? Yeah, that's right. You're in my office. And one day I'm going to see you in leg shackles and I'm going to make you plant trees all damn day until you're tired, and then make you do it again.
That sounds like a fair, not even really punishment, but a fair way to deal with people that are doing harm now, is to force them to do better. Force them to.
Yeah, we'll be a lot more humane than what was done to us, you know. People are like, Mako, really? You want to get control of immigration? You want to send people where? And I was like, yeah, we'll be a lot more humane than they were to us, you know. Yeah. I don't care if you're on a Norwegian cruise ship or something, but we're sending you back to Europe if you cannot behave under Indigenous rule.
Yeah, and that's one thing that it seems like a lot of especially white leftists just don't seem to comprehend. They just assume that if it's not basically white people in control, then it's just going to be a one-for-one replacement, and that just doesn't seem likely to me. I think people that have seen firsthand the horrors of colonialization are not going to be likely to want to go ahead and just repeat the same system, only have different people in charge.
Absolutely.
I mean, that would literally just end up shooting everyone in the foot as well. Like, we are all destined for disaster if we don't deal with climate change, if we don't stop this
Right.
horrible engine of capitalism that is destroying the world, like literally killing the planet and all those people. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So the UN has said that indigenous lifeways are the remedy to the planet. And so we don't trust them, I read, I'm privy to Agenda 21 and everything. We don't trust that entity. But notice the smoke and mirrors, how they'll inject half-truths into things and stuff. So in this case, the UN is telling the truth. But I wonder if it would sound different if an indigenous resistance entity was saying that same message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. People wouldn't accept it then, but yeah. It's been so tragic to see, like, the goings on of what is it, COP? I don't remember what number we're up to now, but the climate conference happening in Europe, and all just the grandstanding and the pretty words that people felt the need to fly on private jet planes to come halfway across the world just to say, in the day and age of Zoom and other ways of being able to speak. So I can only imagine how frustrated you must be with the ways that these so-called environmental movements are trying to deal with these crises.
Yeah. Yeah, that's mostly for green capitalism,
Mm-hmm.
is how they're trying to spin it. Capitalism's dying. They need a new market to exploit.
Yeah, well,
They're going to send Thunberg out and all of them to try to sell their green gadgets.
yep, yeah, yeah. Just make things green, and then you don't have to have a guilty conscience about continuing to destroy the planet.
We're still here to remind people that just going back to a simpler way of life is actually, going to be better than all the shortcuts and stuff they're trying to take.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
been telling people to go back to the horse. Use horses, use bicycles, you know. But people don't want to give up this, I don't know how they've become this lifestyle, right? And
mm-hmm.
so part of it is going to be like a voluntary step down.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this is even good advice to people because crash is coming right now where it's actually happening as we speak. And so if you can do a voluntary step down, like adopt like a less is more mentality, get rid of your addictions and your vices,
Mm-hmm.
live cheaper, live on less, downsize everything. It's not gonna be so like devastating to you when the inevitable happens.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, and for myself too, I think just having a physical reconnection with the earth and the ecosystems that we live in is critical for any of the stuff to sticking. I mean, there's one thing to think about stuff intellectually. You read about climate change, you know all the facts about warming and all this stuff, but it's completely different to actually connect to and care for a land that you live in.
Absolutely.
How do you think people can regain that sort of connection? What would be your advice to people trying to just at least start down that road of reconnection?
Oh, it's land space, like the eco village that we're trying to build, and then it'll have like a safe place to interact with the land. Yeah, so interesting you bring that up because I was watching a survival video the other day. We do a lot of like prepping kind of stuff. We come at security sometimes from a survival standpoint. But anyway, I was watching this video and this person is like depleted of resources, dehydrated, starving, and they're like shows them like traveling, and as they traverse the terrain, I literally see them walking through all these edible plants. Like, you're starving, you're like, oh, you can eat that. Oh, you can eat that too.
Just a little more knowledge, they might not
Yeah.
might not feel in that position. Yeah, I often don't like the framing of things as survivalist, because a lot of times it seems to be kind of a colonial like manifest destiny sort of a mindset where nature is something scary and out there to be dominated, and to survive is to give a big middle finger to nature, which is just trying to kill you and all that sort of thing.
Depends on who's teaching the class.
That's true.
I was telling my students today, because we had to rebel against like the eco-sabotage thing a little bit. And it's only because I've been around so long, I've met people who've done eco-sabotage, and then they've done like 10 or 15 years in prison. They get out, write a book, and they tell you to figure out something else. They're like, that didn't work.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
They get disillusioned with it.
They get disillusioned with it, yeah. And so, but connected to what you just said, I was telling them, for like, one thing might be to destroy a bulldozer, sabotage it. And I said, well, it's not the bulldozer that's wrong. It's who has the keys that's wrong.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because we can use that same bulldozer to put in like, just change the terrain for like, drought resistant crops or something. We can use that. The only thing wrong with it was who has the keys.
Yep, and what their intentions are. Yeah, it alone is just a way to extend your power into the world. But power can be used either way. That's very true.
Right, and so if indigenous people get control, we can decide our own environmental standards and stuff like this.
Yeah,
it'd be completely different.
How would that look like?
Well, we would have the power to say no.
Yeah.
A lot of these companies, they're so damaging that they went overseas, It's like that shit would not exist, and we would really be downsizing a lot of this stuff, this technology. I'm sorry, folks. Like, and here we are, it's ironic talking on a computer, but some of these desktop computers can take up to 1 ton of water to produce a desktop computer. And you see people always having to upgrade for the next one. Like, this has to stop.
Yep. Yeah. And then they get into, they think that cryptocurrencies and other stuff are somehow a solution, but that ends up costing many times more energy just to keep that running than even just doing normal currency. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You always have to keep in mind that there are ways that there are externalities, they're external downsides to whatever piece of technology you use. So you have to keep a holistic view of it. You can't just assume that it's going to be good because it's because you don't see the damage that's caused.
Right.
So have you done any research yourself into like permaculture and permaculture practices and theory and that sort of thing?
Yeah, and I've done a lot of rewilding. stuff. I mean, gardening, yeah, I live in a garden, so I mean, native plants, yes. Dependable food crops, yes. I've been gardening since I was a little kid. Um, I have to thank my grandmother for just letting me do that, just letting me grow food in the backyard. And I don't know, I was always a really smart kid. Like, I read my whole library. I had this babysitter who would beat us until if we couldn't read. And so by kindergarten, I had a fifth grade reading level. So it's just like, I don't know. I didn't really have so much of a childhood. I was already on to work and study. Um,
A lot of it just came naturally through your upbringing.
yeah, yeah. And then, but the rewilding scene, that was like, I seen people living on horseback for 5 months out of the year. And I seen the kind of repression they were getting from the state.
Hmm.
Most of these folks were settlers too. So that was the tip off. I was like, okay, if they're going to ride down on these white kids just for finding a way to be free of the system and live on a horse for 5 months out of the year, this is really what they don't want you to be free. They're trying to inflict this false scarcity on everyone.
Oh, that's the name of the game with capitalism. That's for sure.
Right. And so if you can just take to a horse and go eat roots and rabbits for 5 months, they don't like that.
They don't like that at all because then you less able to be controlled.
Right. So yeah, I went to some of these places. I learned about the roots. I seen the plants that indigenous peoples planted,
Hmm.
but then I seen like where there was like a second wave of people came, right? Colonization brought miners and different like laborers, right? And so they would plant apricot trees and stuff. Um,
Hmm.
Things you can use for medicine like hawthorn and because I'm talking about rugged territories.
Hmm. So, what are your thoughts on bringing in non-indigenous plants that still may be well adapted to your local region, but don't necessarily have a long history there?
I'm okay with that personally. I mean, people have different schools of thought, but if something is a dependable food crop,
Hmm.
for me, I like to keep some of those on hand. I've got some kale that just keeps coming and coming, and it's dependable. You keep getting food off of it. So,
Yeah.
and like the apricot trees, those
Yeah.
are not native, right? Um,
Southeast Asian region. Uh-huh.
and the Navajo ended up growing peaches
Oh.
down there, and they must have gotten them from colonists,
Hmm.
but they got them to perform well and feed the people, and then ironically enough, colonists were angry at them and they came and burnt down all their peach trees.
I heard about that story.
Right.
What inconceivable cruelty.
Right. Yeah, it's no different than burning down the olive trees of the Palestinian.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, they know exactly what they're doing with that as well.
Right.
How it all grows, and it's the colonizer mindset.
Yeah.
It's not enough even to just subjugate or push aside a people. It's about destroying them totally.
Yeah.
Culture, language, land, everything.
They'll burn down the tree of peace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
It's such a cruel mentality. I wish people would see it for what it is too. Um, and not assume that it's just something that happened in the past, way back when, that we're past all that sort of thing now. No, it continues. It's an ongoing process.
Capitalism is a dying illusion. There's not much more time left.
I think that has to be the case. They're running out of people to exploit, and
Yeah.
if there's no one even left to buy their own products, then you can't even perpetuate itself. So yeah, it's reaching its limits. Thankfully, and also terrifyingly, because what comes next is going to depend a lot on how the people have been primed and what they're ready to accept. Because it certainly could go the fascist route, where people cling to some imagined past where things were better, and they just try to give all the power to the people that say they will save them at any means and by any means necessary. And those means usually mean destroying people, taking things, imposing rigid hierarchies. There's never a promise that fascism can actually fulfill for the people that follow it. But luckily,
being a militant organization, I'm not against hierarchy.
Well, hierarchy, justified hierarchy definitely can be a thing for sure, especially when you're getting into situations where everyone needs to be on the same page for an action to be successful. Right. Yeah, right. You can't stop at every twist in the path and have a big meeting about it necessarily.
Yeah, exactly.
So that makes sense. That's not just an arbitrary hierarchy, the way that capitalism and fascism favor.
Okay, right. Yeah, and so this is the confusion, I think, because some people will come into a militant organization and we're like, we don't play, we're strict, we're all kinds of strict.
Mm-hmm.
From that martial arts background too, and also I was in the National Guard briefly. I don't usually tell people, but hey, there you go, deal with it. We're out of time. I have some skills that I acquired. Yeah. Anyway, it's like coming into a militant situation, and if they've been to anarchist or just never been in a disciplined militant situation before, may have a hard time adjusting.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, and that's you might have problems with people that really favor the individualistic forms of anarchy, but those are not what I tend to follow. I believe that people are always best when they work together. It can't just be about the individual, or you never end up. I mean, alone we were very powerless. Like, it doesn't matter what the issue is. If you talk about fighting climate change, you could recycle bottles, you could bike and walk wherever you go, and those could be good things, but that alone is not going to do anything. It has to be collective action. So you have to surrender some part of your own autonomy in order to achieve a greater goal that you're fighting. Right. So yeah. Were there any other topics that you wanted to talk about tonight? Oh, it looks like you're taking care of that call there.
Okay. What was the question?
Sorry about was that. There anything else that you wanted to talk about that we haven't covered so far? Was there anything else that's on your mind that you wanted to cover?
Edison Chiloquin was the last Klamath who wouldn't take the check. Okay. He wouldn't cash the check. Even my wolf's moaning and groaning over here because all I do is work. So yeah, join an organization that gets shit done, put in the work. But Edison Chiloquin, He was the last Klamath who wouldn't accept the check. They terminated that land, and they started giving all the Klamath Modoc people a check. A Klamath Modoc tribal council was corrupt, and for a while, the murder rate was higher than Detroit down there because some people had to set some shit straight. You can't sell somebody's land and think you're just going to get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that would be the case. Yeah.
Yeah, so some people got whacked,
Oh, jeez.
you know? And like let that be a notice for all you other crooked tribal council people out there. Something could happen to you too one day. Get your shit together. And so yeah, Edison Chiloquin, I just have so much respect for him. He had a dream to keep that land, you know? And so he was still living on the land, and they were getting by making like arts and crafts and stuff like that. And I think I want to like call the eco village. I want to like dedicate it to him, right? Yeah, I want to dedicate it to Edison Chiloquin. Red Power.
Red power. So he stuck to his principles. He didn't give in just because it was the way
Yeah,
the wind was blowing.
right.
That's inspiring. That's something you don't often see. So awesome. Very cool. Uh, how is the best way for people to, or what is the best way, I should say, for people to get involved with Illahee spirit runners if they're
Uh,
interested in joining up and learning
the
more?
best way to join up is to get a hold of me. Facebook is good.
Okay.
You could try Twitter too. I'm probably most likely going to respond to Facebook. I put you in a mandatory education and martial arts class. You study there until you feel confident enough to join a committee. You choose from 12 different committees, or you decide to run for a leadership position at that time. But basically, just come find me directly.
Okay. Very cool. So you'll get everyone set up and integrated into the greater movement.
Yeah, just come find me. I used to give my email and stuff, but there's so many hackers and stuff, so just come find me directly. I'll hook you up.
All right. Well, if any of you out there are interested in becoming more involved, that's the best way to do it. Then I left the link for the Facebook page.
Awesome.
So there you have it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We are
Well,
grateful.
I want to thank you so much for coming on and trying to help open our eyes to the struggles that are ongoing and often not seen because almost none of this ever gets coverage in any sort of mainstream news. A lot of it doesn't get covered in alternative news as well. So something that definitely deserves a greater spotlight and a lot more resources put towards it. It sounds like you're on a great path with this and with the
Thank
eco
you.
villages.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. So before I go, if you wouldn't mind, what would be the greeting and then the farewell in your native tongue, your native language, if you don't mind sharing.
Oh, I usually say like ha nanikonek. Hello, my friends.
Han, so it's Han Anikonek.
Ha nanikonek. Hello,
Ha
my
Anikonek.
friends. Yeah, something like that. Um, could be like maybe in Lakota, it could be like on P2 wash day or something, like just good day, more like a see you later kind of thought process.
Okay. So oh man, on P. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have
On P2 wash day.
on P Day.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, hopefully that will be just one more small step towards solidarity and bringing together people that can actually make the change that's needed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you as well. You have a great night, and yeah, I hope to chat with you sometime in the future then, about your projects and your ongoing efforts. Red Power. All right, that was McCall. I'm gonna go ahead and put it back there so you can see it all. So thank you all for joining me as well tonight. That was a really illuminating conversation that we had there. A lot of stuff that I was unaware of and didn't know about. Yeah, Illahee Spirit Runners is the name of the organization, and that's the best way to get to it. Okay, I think that's probably going to be about all that I have time for tonight. Yeah, I had someone in the chat tonight really wanted to have other conversations that we're having than what we're having tonight. And at some point, you just got to say, now is not the time. Now is not the time. I keep putting that away. Let's close that. The chat keeps popping up there. So yeah, there's a time and place for everything. But if I'm doing an interview, which I don't often do on this channel, actually, this is really the first just interview that I've done so far. So, if things seemed, I'll just leave it there. First time doing the interview, so I do appreciate Miko coming on and sharing sharing his journey and his philosophy with us. It sounds like he's got a lot of interesting things to offer towards the movement for fighting climate change and colonialism, which are two of the greatest struggles that we face today. You have a great night as well, Natalie. Thank you for joining us here. I should have put more time for questions, but I figured that if you were gonna put them in the chat, or if you had questions, you probably put them in the chat. So I guess that was just kind of how I went forward. So yeah, I think before I just keep babbling on, I'll just say goodnight to everybody who is not joining me on Twitch. And for those of you that are on Twitch, we're going to go ahead and raid into somebody else. And so if you have a person in mind who you'd like to raid into, now's the time to shout them out. Otherwise, I'll find someone. I'll just choose someone for us. Coming up this Sunday, I'm probably going to have Dan on from the Three Left Show, common guest of the show, or often guest of the show, I should say. And we're going to talk about some more new urbanist stuff. So come with your questions and ideas about new urbanism for this Sunday at probably around 6 p.m. Central Time. The Read Army. Yeah, we can do the Read. You know what? I did the Read Army recently, I believe. So we'll do something different. I appreciate the suggestion. That was definitely a good one. So we might do Alyosher, might do Pipper Papper, or Proudly Radical. That would be another great one too. Or Comrade Bubbles. They're doing Stream Raiders. I don't understand that game, Stream Raiders, at all. And I guess, you know what? I will tease it for just a second. I've been talking with someone who is a permaculture teacher, who is open to the idea of doing an actual permaculture design course over Twitch. And it would be something that would be open to members. You'd have to pay more than the monthly membership on Twitch, but that would just give you access to the exclusive feed. You'd be able to ask questions and stuff like that as the courses were going. But before we get to an actual permaculture design course, because he is a permaculture teacher, he is able to issue actual permaculture design certificates. But before we even get to that point, I'm probably going to try and gauge some interest ahead of time, see if anyone is even that much into permaculture that they'd be willing to put some real money towards it and go through an online course. And I think Twitch has a lot to offer for that setting, more so than a lot of online courses you see, because of just how interactive it is, how dynamic and quick the chat is. And then with Restream, how many people we could have on screen all at the same time and able to speak. I think it would be a really good and useful way to learn permaculture, no matter where in the world you are. And especially for those who maybe aren't near any sort of formalized permaculture training centers, which is a lot of people, even in the US, even in Australia, where permaculture originated from. I think this could be a way to make that possible more so than it is right now, in a much more interactive and hands-on way. But before we get to an actual permaculture design course, we're going to do, I think in a couple weekends, I'll put out the official event on Facebook sometime this week. I'll finish that up and put it together. And we're going to do just like an introduction, just like to gauge interest in doing a full long course. So we'll do like maybe a 2 or 3 hour intro to permaculture course, kind of like what I've been doing, but with an actual permaculture instructor. I just do this informally. I have a permaculture design certificate, but not the certification to teach. So yeah, we'll do that in a couple weekends. So look forward to that. Next week on Wednesday, we'll be returning to Alexander Berkman's The ABC of Anarchy, also called What is Communist Anarchism? And be going through chapters 4 and 5, I believe. And so I hope to see you for that as well. All right, I think that's all the housekeeping stuff that I wanted to get out of the way. Also, though, remind you to vote in the second annual Lefties Awards. If you go to Left Signal Boost on Facebook, you can find the voting form there and vote for all the best stuff, all the best creators from the past year and the work that they've done. So that'll be a fun night. It's coming up quicker than I would like it to because there's so much work to be done. But Black Friday is when we'll have the actual award show right here on wherever you're finding this stream right now. You'll be able to tune in on Black Friday, which is the day after U.S. Thanksgiving, and we'll do the awards. It'll be a fun time. Get a little bit of recognition, get to know some maybe lesser known leftist creators that you may not even be aware of at this point. So yeah. All right. So now that definitely is the end of all the housekeeping and messages and stuff. And I am going to pick, I think, boy, the Reed Army. Maybe we'll just do the Reed Army again. Let's just do them again. That was a good suggestion, Natalie. I do appreciate that. So looking at Marxism, a French name, Maria Teguer, and the women's movement. That looks like an interesting topic. They always do really cool stuff. So if you're not on Twitch, here's the place where you can find the Reed Army, who are themselves up for a Lefty Award for best Twitch theory stream. So if that's your favorite Twitch theory streamer, then you should definitely go and vote in the Lefties Awards. But yeah, let's go right into them right now. It looks like they're just starting, so this should be good. Get the full program. All right. See you guys hopefully this Sunday. And